He is the Prime Minister of WOW. He is the pinnacle of fun here on the High Plains. He is also the person who gave me one of my first jobs out of Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. It is my pleasure to talk to a good friend of mine today, Paul Borchardt with Wonderland. If you've been out there, you have seen him. If you have enjoyed your summers there, just in talking about Wonderland, it makes me smile. I have a lot of great memories. So I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the kind of a little bit of the history of Wonderland, why in the world he would have hired me at the age of 18 or 19, what was he thinking, and all of these things. Paul, welcome on to my little program here called Let's Talk About It.
Well, I'm glad that you invited me. I keep remembering and watching you on TV, and I say, I remember him when he worked for me.
When I was spinning the Himalaya,
yes,
which is still one of my favorite jobs that I ever had. That was such a fun couple of summers for me, Paul. And so I just appreciate you. And I even when I worked there, I had such respect for you and your lovely wife and your sweet family. Your girls were all out there. Your mother-in-law and your father-in-law. It's just Wonderland has always been this really neat family dynamic that has happened out there. So I'm curious, and there's a lot that we're going to talk about today. First of all, how have you been? How are you doing?
well, we're doing really good. I don't believe I'm as old as I say I am according to my birth.
How old do you say you are these days, Paul?
82.
82 years old. You just celebrated, by the way, your 60th wedding anniversary with Sweet Paula.
Right.
And you said before we got it going, it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
No, it doesn't. It seems like yesterday. But we still enjoy each other, and we have wonderful kids, and they all are very successful. And what can I say?
You did good.
It wasn't me. The Lord watches out for fools.
Amen. I'll give you an amen to that. I got to watch your girls grow. You had Paige was a little bit younger than I was, and then the step up from Paige
What's Kara?
Kara was my age,
Okay.
and then you had two older. You had Rebecca and
Kristen.
Yeah, Kristen. So they were a little bit older than I was, but your family was always so sweet and kind. So celebrating 60 years. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm a rookie at this. I'm approaching 20. Got any tips for me?
There is no wedding anniversaries. It's all good. I mean, like I say, 80. I'm 82. We're both in our 80s, but we don't feel that way. We still go to work. We still love what we do. We still like working with young people, and we get to see all kinds of young people, everybody. And it's always just fun to see people when they become successful, like you, and there's many others.
Yeah.
We had the head of the San Antonio heart operation doctor was working with us, and he mowed the lawn really good.
Yeah.
He just was a good employee.
Well, I think we found the fountain of youth, and it is Wonderland. I mean, think about this: you and Paula, and your, before that, your in-laws. You work with all of these kids.
Yep.
All throughout this, no matter how old you get, they all stay the same age, right?
Yes.
And so, what kind of challenge does that have? I mean, again, because you're working with 15, 16, 17-year-old kids.
All I can say is that you encourage them to do the best they can. And number one, compliment them when they do something good, and give them a chance to excel. I see a lot of kids that say, well, I don't want to do that job. I said, well, just do it once if you like it. If you don't like it, we got other jobs too, Well, I don't like working outdoors. Well, then why don't you just go get another job, because this job requires you to be out of doors. But you get to work with your own age kids. You get to work for people who love the job they do, whether they be mechanics or the girls at the gates or whatever. Everybody likes their job. And that permeates, I think, our whole concept of Wonderland. We like what we do, and we'll do anything to make people happy, because when they walk in, I want them to go, wow, this is the place to go. And we have a good time. Our mission statement ends with, and it is for them to come back again.
I've been back a lot of times. It is this, and it gets asked from our family every year because we go every year. It doesn't matter what age the girls are. We always have a summer trip where we just go out to Wonderland and we eat, we laugh, we have a great time. And there's something magical about that place, especially at night. My favorite time is at night when the lights start to come on, and there you can smell the popcorn. You see the lights, things start to cool down a little bit. There's just something about Wonderland when all those lights come on that I just absolutely love. So let's go back, so 60 years ago, you meet Paula. Paula's mother and father started Wonderland.
Right.
How many years ago?
1951.
1951.
74 years.
So they had been operating this thing 14 years before you got married. When you met Paula, what was it like getting to know Mr. Rhodes in terms of, I mean, here you are, you're getting ready to marry his daughter, and he's operating this thing called Wonderland. What was that like?
Well, I didn't know right away because I was going into the Marine Corps, which I did through ROTC. So my last year, my eyes weren't 20/20. So being a Marine Corps officer at that time, before Vietnam or during it, you had to have 20/20 vision. So I got into the Supply Corps school. So the thing that I remember was that I was kind of disappointed that I had to make up a lot of time in grades because I got switched to the Navy. Well, when I did that, I didn't have much time to do things, so I was working on it. And I dated this one girl because, or I didn't date her. I had a car with her. It was a convertible, and it was a fraternity brother of mine that dated her. And I met her the next morning, and as he had invited her to go, me and a couple other guys to go eat breakfast with him. And she said, you have the coldest car in town. I said, what are you talking about? She said, we went to Oklahoma City and we about froze to death. And I said, I froze to death. Then he turned the heater on. Yeah, we had the heater on. I said, well, he had to zip the back window up, didn't he? Oh, we didn't know we had a back window.
And this is Paula.
This is Paula. So, and then the next weekend was Texas OU weekend. So
and you're by the way, he is a huge OU fan. We've been praying over this man for a long time, but that's all right. Maybe that has aged you a little bit. Huge OU fan.
So is Paula. So anyway, I hooked a ride with Paula and her date, which was a fraternity brother of mine, and another fraternity brother, and Paula's good friend. Well, I was the fourth wheel or fifth wheel on the wheel, as I said.
Fifth wheel is good when you go camping, not so much when you're going on dates, right?
And everybody else was going to sleep, and I just got in a conversation with Paula, and I said, boy, she's pretty smart, pretty good-looking girl, and she had good-looking legs, and what else could I say? I was going down. I had two girls waiting for me, and we were going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, that night, the Beach Boys, at that time in the 60s, 65, 66, 65, the Beach Boys, 64. The Beach Boys were real big. And there was a big Coliseum dance. The OU had one floor and Texas had the bottom. Well, we were on the top floor, and she was with this fraternity brother of mine, and she and I spent a lot of time going to the bathroom down on the Texas group.
Yeah.
Because we could go back and forth. Nobody knew who they were, so that's how we got everything together. And a matter of fact, I rode home with some other guys and didn't even meet up with the girls that
night. Paula grabbed your eye, and 60 years later, we are celebrating. So you meet her, you fall in love, and then you marry into this magical thing called Wonderland, which at the time didn't have. This would have been back in the.
We had 10 rides.
10 rides, and that was basically everything was down kind of in the kiddie park area. So we had probably the boats.
Helicopters, and 2 or 3 flat rides, and we had an old G16 train. Looked like a Santa Fe. It's a real little one. And incidentally, Don Powell ran that for 4 years.
Don Powell? Don Powell worked at Wonderland.
Yep, he was Well, everybody that went to Paladuro High School worked at Wonderland because it was there.
It was close.
And then this was also during the time when the air base was there. So we had a lot of airmen that came in and worked too. So anyway, that's how my father-in-law was a real Iron Man. I mean, he grew up being a welder, and he worked at Cessna and experimental planes and things like that. So
most people don't know that he actually built some of those rides. Specifically, I want to talk about, because it always, the Fantastic Journey. I've heard this legend from years ago that that Mr. Rhodes just started building it, right?
Well, he had three friends that had amusement parks: Tulsa, Wichita Falls, and Tulsa. And us. They ran around together. They were the same size, and they all started the parks together. Well, Bob Bell in Tulsa met a man that built dark rides, and he had one started, and he told my father-in-law, "You got to get one of these. These are fantastic. This is going." And my father-in-law says, "I can't afford to do that." And he says, "Hey, I'll help you. I'll do anything we need. All you need to do is buy the cars." The guy that made the cars was in California, and he said, "This is the best guy in the country to do this, and I'm doing it. All you have to do is copy me if you want to do it." And he says, "Well, I can do that." So that's how we got it copied to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And so that was the creation, the Fantastic Journey. I've always wanted to know this, because having worked out there and one of the things is you kind of get trained on all the different rides, and then you kind of settle into the ones. I remember I got kind of settled into the Himalaya and the Texas Tornado. Those were the two that I operated quite a bit, but I kind of did all of them. I always wondered, what's the story behind Fantastic Journey? Even to this day, you still that does not include the handstand. So what's the story behind the pay for that ride?
Here's the problem. People, after they ride it one or two times, they want to get out and scare the people behind them or something. So they get out of the car, because once they're inside, it's dark and no one can see what's going on unless you go through each segment. Lights come on, or the trick comes on or something. And a lot of people get out and they think they're going to scare somebody. So they hide behind the door. Well, the car comes in and bang, hits them on the head. And then they have to, and then the cars don't stop. I mean, if
they keep going.
If they don't know what to do.
So that's why you pay. You get one and done.
It's for safety. Yeah. Their own safety.
I always wanted to know that. So now I know. And that thing was pretty much put together by hand.
It's all built by hand. Yeah.
Okay. What was the kind of I remember when you guys got I was a kid. This was when you got the log ride. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is there a story behind you guys getting that ride? Because I remember that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, the big deal was we had put in the Sky Ride, and the salesman and the owner of it, Hawkins Rides, we were sitting there drinking margaritas one night, and we were talking about what do you like to do, and my OD, the owner, says, I got an idea. I'd like to build a Tunnel of Love type ride, a water ride. And my father-in-law says, yeah, that's good. Let's do that. Well, the salesman said, well, Tunnel of Love hasn't had a lot of people. What we need is a log ride. And I said, yeah, let's build a log ride like what Arrow has in Disneyland. And he says, well, yeah, we'll do that. Well, OD says, yeah, well, we need to go look at a few of those and see how they're made. So we did. We visited about 4 other parks that had the Arrow log ride. Yeah. And he said, we can build this, no problem. So that's the story behind it.
And then you just did it. You just built your own.
He just built it, yeah. And the interesting thing is that we have a unique way of making the water flow. And it is made by a company in Sweden that makes a big mixer. Well, it comes that all the sewage plants use that to mix up the sewage. Yeah. To stir it up. Well, he he said, well, there's other ones that you can lift the water or do something. Well, this blade forces it through, and then because the volume increases as it goes through under pressure, he figured out the computation to go to 18 inches. So at 18 inches, it goes from the beginning all the way till it comes back around. So that's the story on that log ride.
Wow. What's your favorite ride out there? Like in all the years that you've been a part of it, what is something, is there one that really stood out and was special for you?
Oh, the Texas Tornado.
Yeah.
Because the salesman and I became really good friends, and we toured a lot of places as to build a coaster. We knew we couldn't build a wooden coaster because it's so dry here, and wood requires moisture because it'll split. You know what happens to wood? It just deteriorates.
Especially with our weather, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any humidity. We don't have anything. So we did about 10 amusement parks that had steel coasters, and we were about ready to give up because we came up with all these ideas. We want to have a turning upside down coaster, one or two loops. At that time, there was only one company in the entire world that made a double loop coaster, which was a German ride. So then Six Flags got one, and they had the two circles together. And the other thing was they wanted to have a turning coaster that went through a loop. Well, we went down to Louisiana. At that time, there was a big park there, and Arrow made this ride that went through a side turnover, and we rode it, and it got off. And Jerry, my friend, says, "What'd you think of that?" I says, "We don't want this. There's nothing to it. I mean, you'd go in, you do a twist, and nothing." And so we started doing it, and we found this one coaster that we really liked down in Orlando. At that time, I don't remember what the company's name was. It's not in existence anymore. But it had the turnaround loop that was really good. I mean, you started at the top and went down, and you just were put into the seat all the way up until you get up to the crown coming back down. He said, "We got to have that. We'll have that." And I said, "Well, the only other thing, is that we'd like to get a loop." But he said, "We can do a loop. We'll get a double loop. We'll put one loop at the beginning and one at the end." Well, heck yes. Why didn't anybody else ever think of that?
Yeah.
And they do now. They make them that way all over. They don't put two loops together. They put them inside. Now, it's a portable one. They'll put two loops together. But ours is the first to be that unique, and especially that. So that's the story.
How many years ago was that?
1979.
Is when you got the Texas Tornado. I'm going to tell you a story. So my favorite ride doesn't exist out there anymore, but I remember my Uncle James would come and pick me up and take me out to Wonderland. The old cars that you would get in, and you had the track, and it was kind of back there, kind of where the water ride is kind of now, I think, somewhere back there.
It's where the Tornado is.
Yeah, and it looked like, they kind of looked like little Camaros, kind of. That was, and you'd get in these cars, and you had a gas, and you would just drive these little things around. It was kind of on a track, but that was my favorite thing because at 9 or 10 years old, I just wanted to drive.
That's all people want to do is drive. That's why bumper cars were so good because you get in and you drive and you hit people with them. Yeah. Now that ride that you call just called sports cars.
Yeah, the sports cars. Yeah, that was my favorite ride.
It was a gas-powered car, and it had a center rail so you could drive. But the thing was always waiting for an accident to happen because when people would come into the station, our attendant would have to run back and pull a lever on the side so they didn't crash into somebody. Yeah. And if you didn't, you'd crashed and people could get hurt. But I mean, it was one of those things that you had to be on top of it because the operator had to be aware of what was going on. And that was another one of the rides that our friends in Tulsa and all these group said, "You need to buy that one because that's a good car, a good ride." People rode it they were going all the time.
I would have been fine if I didn't ride anything else as a 10-year-old boy, as long as I was in that constant ride with the sports cars, and I was going around. That just kind of meant meant the world to me. And then as I got older, and my favorite ride to operate obviously was the Himalaya. But there was and I remember this. You and I had to talk about it when I was young. I was trying to figure out. You were very specific about the music that got played. That we didn't, it's like at that point in time, any of the hip music, it just wasn't there. There was a recipe to it.
Right.
And there was certain music that just worked, and somehow, like that 70s and 80s rock just did it.
Right. That particular ride was brought into the country during the bicentennial, but they were made in France. And a guy in France, he was in the United States, but he brought the first one over. And at that time was the kickoff of rock and roll, really. Yeah. And that's what made that ride good. And then as you went along, and you operated it, it has a beat when it goes around. You can go boom, boom. It has a beat. And you got different speeds you go. So each speed that you go, which amounts to 3, loading, running, last ride. You got those 3 beats, so you can play the music that has the beat of that ride. And a lot of people, when they first get on, I want to put my music on, and it don't have the beat. It don't have you got to get that beat and the speed and the talk and when they do, people scream and yell, go faster, go faster.
Yeah, it was, and that was again one of my favorite things of just getting the big cake at the time. I'm dating myself, but we just had a case of CDs and we would go up there and we would operate it, and it was something. The music carried the ride, and people would hear it, and then they would hear that horn, that big loud horn, and it just drew people. There was never a time where that ride was not busy. At what year because when it used to go forward and backwards, some of you old school people listening right now will remember that. We'd go forwards and then we'd go backwards. We took the backwards out. When did that happen?
I don't remember when it was. It's been quite a few years now, but there was an accident in Austin, Texas at the rodeo or stock show, whatever it was. And the guy that was running it ran it too fast in the reverse and forward, which it was a hydraulic, so you adjust the hydraulics to the speed you can go, and you can limit it or make it go.
There's centrifugal force happening there that can be
exactly, and people don't understand centrifugal force, even though they've gone through and had physics. Centrifugal force don't mean anything unless you associate it with something. Yeah. So anyway, you're going forward, you go 13 RPMs according to the diameter of the circle. In reverse, you could only go 11 RPMs. Yeah. If you go faster, as you come over the hump, you get the feeling of
that negative G that kind of hits
exactly.
there. Yeah.
Well, he was going 22 RPMs, twice as fast as it's supposed to be. So somebody flew out and hit the wall and got killed. Well,
so that's why we got
well, the U.S. government came out and said they recommend that you don't run it backwards. Well, you can run it backwards. We go backwards a little bit. The first year we did this, poo-boo, we're not going to do that. We ran at 11, didn't have any problems, and people loved going backwards because it just is. Then I got another guy, my insurance inspector came and said, do you know about this? I said, yeah, the federal government, OSHA, says they recommend that you don't do it. Well, they recommend, they didn't require it. Well, he says, our insurance company is going to require it. And I said, oh, boy. So we now don't go backwards because the insurance companies don't want to be liable in case somebody is stupid and stands up and falls out. But, our operation is not get them in, get them out fast. It's give them a ride, give them what they came for, enjoy their ride. We could go a lot faster, but it ain't going to make it any better. We know where the best one is and what it does. And
as I'm sitting here talking to you, I think, had I known all of this, I think I would have wanted to be in a Wonderland R&D department where you just travel around hearing these stories of you going around the country and riding these rides and seeing these things and grabbing a little bit of this and bringing it back to Amarillo is just wonderful. So Paul, at 82, you said you turned 82. What does the future of Wonderland look like? What do you hope for the future of the people in Amarillo and the future of Wonderland? What do
I
you
just hope that in the future that Wonderland maintains its part of the community. It's not only Amarillo, it's 200 miles away. We get people from
Clovis,
Clovis,
Stratford, Spearman,
all over Kansas, Colorado, all the way to Oklahoma City, all the way around. I mean, so that and the reputation that we have is it's a fun place for kids. Kids can come, or teenagers, or old people bring their grandkids. You know, it's just that's what the future is. I think for Wonderland, we just want to maintain what we've had and have the good ideas of developing new things like. Have you ridden our old-time cars? It's like that gas-powered cars, but it's electric cars. And Grandpa and Grandma and mother and dad and a little kid. Kid has to drive the car. All he does is turn the steel. It still goes around on the
Because that's
track.
down in the west end, down there,
Yep.
down by the old parachutes and I think the shoot. So shoot.
It's on the opposite end of shoot,
yeah.
but it's down the northeast. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And those kind of rides are still here. We're going to put in maybe this year a teacup ride, you know, where you get in and spin your little teacups as you go around. We have another one we want to put in. I don't know if we get to it. It just takes a lot of time and
money. I mean, these rides are not cheap.
No, they're not cheap. But the big point is we have maintenance problems that I want to make sure we don't have anything happen.
Right.
So we spend. People won't believe this, but 7 hours a day maintenance on 8 guys. It's just that's all they do. Safety check, make sure everything's okay where it is. We probably don't have to do that, but I say we're going to do it. If we don't have maintenance, you don't have something happens, it's maintenance.
And that's something that you've been doing for. I mean, you did that even when I was there. I remember there was a certain group of maintenance guys. They wore a different colored shirt. I think. At that time, I think we were all wearing red shirts and they were all wearing blue shirts. But you knew that by what shirt they were, they would come in and take care of it. I just remember coming in, and I probably wasn't the average kid that worked out there because I was a conversationalist. And so I would come in and I'd go into the room with the blue Marlin and I would check in on Mr. Rhodes and see how everybody was doing. I'd get my assignment and I'd be out the door, but I'd always go in there. You know why I'd go in there? That air conditioner there worked really well. It worked really well. We'd have these hot summer days, and I knew Mr. Rhodes would be in there. There was a chair, and he would sit in that chair. You probably sit in the same chair now. We'd sit in this chair, and he'd catch a nap every now and again. But that thing, there was something about the temperature of that room. I wanted to be in that room. And so I think the last time, maybe not last year, but the year before that, I stopped in, I think, and Rebecca was there, and I said hi to Rebecca, and I just kind of poked my head for old time's sake into that sweet room. I'm curious, what was I like at, let's see, I would have been 18 or 19. Do you have any memories of me working there? And what was I like?
Well, I graduated from college, had 4 years in the Navy as an officer, so I was expecting to be a manager. Well, for the first 4 years, my father-in-law made me carry a grease gun and that. So that's where I got it, but I liked doing that. I grew up on a farm, so mechanical problems I enjoyed it. I like to fix things.
Right.
Well, I mean, fix things. I mean, I like to work on them. I don't like to fix them because if it's fixing, that means there's something wrong and you gotta repair it or do something. So I always want to make sure that everything is right, or at least I knew what was going on. And I think that's what's permeated our maintenance staff and all that now.
Well, so luckily they never made me work on anything. I need to state that for the record. I was not qualified to do that. I was qualified to push a few buttons. But this would have been 92. Do you have any memories of me working there back in was there something that stood out to you about me working there?
Yeah, you were running the Himalaya.
Yeah.
Because Himalaya guys is what I pay attention to because what you mentioned before, the music has to go with the ride. And you were very good with that. The guy that came after you, I trained him for 3 years and he finally soaked it up. And he stayed me with 8 years.
8 years?
8 years.
You ran the Himalaya for 8 years.
And then, you'll love this. There's a guy from Tulsa, Oklahoma, that ran the State Fair of Oklahoma and Bell's Amusement Park, the Himalaya out there. He's now in his 70s, and he called me 4 years ago. He said, can I come over there and run your Himalaya? I said, what are you talking about? You're 70 years old, or in that age group. I don't know exactly. He said, I just have something in me that says I've got to do this. I says, well, if you want to come over. Well, he came over, and he had worked there like 20 years running the Himalaya. And he was trained by the experts, and he can do it. So now every holiday he comes over from Tulsa, works the weekend, and gets his jollies, so to speak, of running the Himalaya.
I would be happy if I got to go back and run the Himalaya.
But he does it, and he knows the music, and when he's there, if he doesn't have a line, he'll get a line.
Okay. Well, next time he comes, do me a favor, reach out to me. I think this would be a great story idea.
That's the next WOW media.
Yes, I think we need to get that story on air, and I need to meet this guy and need to get this kind of this worked out. Well, I want to thank you, Paul, for again your family, the employment opportunities for these young kids, and that's what it was for me. And I know you guys started them out about what 16 years old. 16 years old. Most of them, that's their first job, but it gives them an opportunity to understand what hard work is all about and the importance of getting that paycheck. And that stuff matters. And so you've employed thousands upon thousands of kids throughout the years. And I was lucky to be one of them. I enjoyed my time there. I loved it. That place is special to me. So special, in fact. I have, and somebody, you can reach out to me. I'll give you my code here. But I have on Spotify, that's where I listen to all my music now. I created a playlist, Paul, of all of my favorite Himalaya songs.
Really?
I have a play. I mean, and it's there's so much music there, but it is my Himalaya playlist. Even on Spotify, if you search Himalaya playlist, my name, it's on there. If you want access to it, I'll give you access to my playlist. I'm just telling you, there is, to this day, if I'm on a road trip and I play that playlist, I immediately get happy. I mean, I've got Van Halen. Yep. Jump was one of my favorite songs to play. Rat, Round and Round, because it is the Himalaya. I mean, I've got a litany of music that you can check out. And so thank you for letting me understand what the magic of WOW was when I worked there. I get to share it with my kids now, and even though they're getting older, we still make an appointment each year.
I'm sure they have their favorite ride that they want to ride to.
My youngest daughter, Piper, if it were up to her, we would get there and we would ride the Texas Tornado nonstop. I've got a wonderful picture that I sent your marketing team. I've sent your marketing team a lot of pictures throughout the years because my girls have grown up there. Every year I go and I take pictures. I kind of document it. But there's this picture of Piper standing in front of the Texas Tornado sign with her hands up. And it just, again, you're talking about joy and the happiness that brings them. And my other daughter is as much into music as I am, and hers is the Himalaya. Which again, those are my two favorite rides, and so I love doing that. The Mousetrap has a certain thing to me. I think that's a great coaster. I enjoy that, and for nostalgia's sake, I'll always go and I'll jump on that train just to hear that whistle. There's something about that train whistle. And I'm sure everybody that grew up here on the High Plains, they have these Wonderland moments. So on behalf of them, Paul, thank you for giving us those memories. Thank you to your family, because I know it's been a labor of love. I hope that Wonderland is around for my grandkids. I hope it continues to grow and continues to bring joy to people. And I've always wanted to talk to you about that, about the history of it. I mean, and to know just a little bit about it. I'm happy to know you. happy anniversary, 60 years.
Thank you.
That's incredible, and thank you for keeping that legacy alive. And I know Rebecca's a big part of it now, and I know that she's kind of taken the mantle in that. And so,
The reason I like it, or you do and everybody does, it's sort of like seeing 4 and 5-year-old kids with an ice cream cone and licking the side of it, and then you say who you are, and you say, "Oh, Mister, I love this place."
yeah.
What else can you do? Just say, "I'm just glad." That's why when the park's closed, I like to go out and sit on the bench where it's dark and just look up the stars and say, "Lord, thank you for giving me this day."
Amen. Paul, thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us talk about it a little bit. And please tell your family that I said hello.
Well, you do. We appreciate you very much. Watch you all the time. What can I say?
Well, that's a good thing, and you're a big part of what we do here. You guys have always been just so good to us. So, Paul, thank you, and I'll see you at the park this summer.
I'll be there. Thank you.